When I first rode the 650s as a beginner in 2020, I expected to like the Interceptor more. But surprisingly, without knowing anything about the difference between them, I was so new to motorcycling I didn't even notice the handlebar difference. I ended up saying I preferred the GT. I eventually ended up buying a Himalayan, then selling it and getting the Interceptor. But today, I want to revisit the GT and figure out if I was actually onto something.
Good morning, guys. This morning we are riding my bike's sprightlier sibling, the Continental GT 650. Let's see what she's all about. I'm gonna take it for a quick blast in the twisties. Hope to answer your questions about this bike and my questions about this bike. Come on, let's ride.
One issue I noticed early on was getting false neutrals. Just listen to this.
Got stuck between the gears there. Second time it happened.
The gearbox quality of the 650s, while smooth and light in usage, does need improvement. But the truth is, these bikes are known to be reliable, and of all the Royal Enfields have the most proven reputation for having few problems.
Okay guys, first thing, let's do a walk around of the bike. So for those of you who aren't in the know, the GT 650 shares the same engine, the same chassis as the Interceptor 650, which is the bike I own. They're nearly the same bike with some key differences, where the Interceptor is kind of a standard bike all-arounder. The GT 650 is meant to be close to an authentic cafe racer. First major difference, of course, is these clip-on handlebars, which are much lower. And the Interceptor handlebars gives you a much more sporty ergo, and to go with that are these foot pegs, which are a little bit higher than they are in the Interceptor, resulting in a more tucked in position. Some people actually prefer this because the shins hit against these foot pegs less than they do on the Interceptor. Of course, another major difference is this differently shaped fuel tank, which in my opinion comes in cooler, more interesting colors than the Interceptors. I'll show some of the options on screen and compare those to what you get on the Interceptor. And the one we have here is a very nice retro British racing green. Definitely one of my favorite colors for any bike. Of course, it's a slightly different seat as well. The Interceptor comes with a flat seat, although mine doesn't have it. This comes more with a seat that inclines for the pillion, although a lot of GT owners replace this pillion seat with sort of I don't know what you call it, like a rear cowl, really for that maximum cafe racer styling.
Here's a closer look again at some of the details on the GT for your appreciation. One difference with the Interceptor that I did forget to mention, the GT does not have a center stand. Combined with the rear set pegs, this gives a bit more ground clearance for your leaning through the twisties.
The GT is marketed as a ton of fun, and we're taking it to the twisties where it belongs, and I'll tell you how I find it compared to the Interceptor. So already I expect it's going to handle great in the twisties because of this Harris Performance chassis, but definitely the feel with these low clip-on handlebars is quite different, and I'm keen to experience just how different it is. Otherwise, mostly the same bike. I'll tell you later how to pick between the two. Start up this baby. Instant startup, so smooth. I love that. Let's go.
While we're enjoying the ride, here's some more thoughts and info about the GT. It really is such a smooth, enjoyable ride. Perfect for a blast through the twisties without demanding too much skill and attention as you would with a very powerful bike.
Woo! Alright, haha, they got me. Clean shot.
Most most of its power and torque is made at low RPM, so it is fully accessible. You don't have to rev it out to get your rush. It'll let you overtake, lane split, and accelerate up hills with ease, but it doesn't have that hair-raising continual surge that you would get from like the XSR 700. This also applies to the Interceptor. Oddly, a bit of YouTube research showed that the GT, despite the weight reduction of not having a center stand, may have an ever so slightly lower top speed than the Interceptor, but it should be virtually the same. Now these clip-ons, they're not actually super low like a Super Sport, but they're low enough to feel way more aggressive. And it's not just psychological. So apparently the clip-ons put more of your weight on the front, which of course compresses the fork more, shortening the wheelbase and therefore making it sharper in cornering. The price you pay though is achy palms and wrists, and on longer rides, a tired back. The difference between the wrist fatigue on this and my Interceptor with a tall wide handlebar is stark. Another effect of these clip-ons, though completely subjective, is that the GT, in my opinion, gives off a charisma and cool that the Interceptor, though also really good looking, does not. Just look at these photos. People also turn their heads and look at this bike in parking lots. And another thing is that I think it's because it's a Royal Enfield with all the passion and heritage associated with that brand, along with it being affordable, it doesn't get that same hipster stigma as some of the more expensive European neo-retros. The GT and Interceptor seem to be bikes that many people outside the riding community instinctively seem to get and are drawn to. I don't know, maybe it's because they look like the bikes you grew up seeing in posters and in the movies? Maybe it's that kind of bike that makes them want to ride as well.
Let's see with the speed and power of the GT. Cruising at this speed is still fun. It's not so bad. Very, very nice. Just motorcycling by myself. It's a beautiful morning even though it's wet. That's the beauty of this smooth and relaxed engine. Oh my god, the rainbow! Oh my god! Woo! Okay, I'm distracted from the review by just how stunning it is up here right now.
Moving on. The stock seat height is pretty low for me at 31 inches or 793 millimeters, and I'm 5'7" or 169 centimeters. But I do notice that riders who aren't used to heavy bikes kind of drop this bike a lot because they're shocked by the weight of it once it's stopped. At 202 kilos or around 440 pounds, it's a lot heavier than like a Svart 401 or even an XSR 700. And I think people are surprised because this bike is low and doesn't look much bigger than 150-250cc cafe racers, unlike say a Tenere 700, which is actually just a little heavier but looks and feels much bigger. The bike is a hunk of metal, which makes it look and feel authentically retro and solid, but the trade-off is weight. Speaking of trade-offs, these spoked wheels mean you're using tires with inner tubes, and that comes with pros and cons. You can get them converted to tubeless, but in a country like this with bad roads, they're reportedly prone to failure, which completely negates the advantage. However, I am told that a good compromise is to convert just the rear, which experiences more punctures, but absorbs less impact than the front. The tires are also an unusual combo, 18 inches front and rear. Not sure why that is, but it does limit your tire choices somewhat. I also heard a bunch of reviewers complain about the brakes, but if you ask me, they're okay. I could do with more sharpness, but unlike, say, the Himalayan, it never came to a point where I couldn't stop exactly when I needed to.
Let's go to Tanay Highlands just because this is just the prettiest place to have a coffee.
Hey guys, it's a bummer it was wet, but I think I'm getting the idea about the GT now, but I'll tell you more after coffee.
Alright, hopefully we'll have some drier roads on the way down. We can have a little bit more fun on the GT. clear.
Alright, going down, and I'm gonna shut up and let you enjoy this raw ride down with me. And you can get my final thoughts and more comparisons with the Interceptor at the end of the video.
It's so smooth. Coming back down is always much more fun. Careful here. A lot of people tend to overshoot in this part of Marilake, so it's best to be conservative. Big long sweeper, big C. R150R.
Okay, back in the city, and I can tell you that the GT is easy enough to ride in traffic. Not as easy as the Interceptor with its taller handlebars giving more of a feeling of control, but otherwise the bike's relatively narrow, the seat height is low, and the power is easy to modulate, so I have no trouble filtering with it. But it does get pretty darn hot after a while. So guys, in the end, these two bikes, the Interceptor and the GT, are, as you might have guessed, largely the same. It's that same really smooth engine that just has that power in the sweet spot where it's enough to be fun, but it's beginner friendly, it won't stress you. So even if you're riding it hard, it's not like this really stressful, hyper-focused thing. And it just lends itself to really nice rides and so many smiles per mile. So choose the Interceptor if you want more of an all-arounder, a roadster, something that you can tour with a more comfortable handlebar position, although that's not the stock handlebar, take note. Or if you want a bike that you're gonna convert into a scrambler for some off-road fun, although there are many here who still build their GTs into flat trackers, use really aggressive off-road tires, and it still looks and rides great. And of course, pick the GT if you're really into that cafe racer aesthetic, if you want to be just a little bit more fashionable and feel really cool with this lower, more aggressive handlebar position. If your type of riding is more short blasts, Sunday rides, you want to feel more sporty, then definitely the GT. What a nice bike. Put another way, if these guys are twin brothers, the Interceptor is the more sensible, well-rounded one, while the GT is the cooler, hipper, more fashionable one. And overall, these two bikes will give you that pure retro-like motorcycling experience, but without the headaches of having an actual vintage bike, with nice modern touches like ABS, fuel injection, and a slipper clutch. The clutches on these are so light. And I would say for either bike, definitely you should look into getting these YSS fork upgrade kits and upgrades to the rear shocks. Makes it so much more rideable because my Interceptor has it. But really, you can't go wrong. It's been said when they came out, and I'll say it again, I think Royal Enfield hit it out of the park with these 650 twins. And I just wanna keep riding them. Alright guys, I know there's a lot I missed, so just leave any questions in the comments regarding the Interceptor versus the GT. I don't have much time today, nor with this bike, but I'll do my best to answer your questions in the comments. So thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you next time.